that the sun shines down its power to all the world and makes the wind blow strong as it will. I wonder how gentle rains can fall upon the land, so lovely earth can stay lovely still. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is Energy Week with George Harvey, me, and the amazing Tom Fennell.
In the flesh.
In the flesh. I am only partly in the flesh. Not
yeah, you look under the weather today.
I am a bit under the weather, that's right. Tired, sleeping a lot, sore throat, sneezing and coughing. But hopefully we'll get through this show without too much trouble in that regard, because it hasn't been too bad. Okay, every day I go to my blog and the internet and I find everything that I can about energy and climate change. And the 10 to 15 items that I think are the most interesting, I put up on the blog.
Best of the blog.
Best of the blog. A synopsis of each with a link to the original article. And then once a week, Tom and I get together and we take the best of the blog and talk about it here on this show.
Yeah, I get a chance to read them, obviously, you know, and some of the ones are very well worth reading.
Yeah.
And I'll try and call that to your attention.
Yeah.
And some of them are very interesting. The first one coming up is very interesting.
Yeah. Well, the first one coming up is from Sour Energy.
And we got a picture.
Let's have a picture. There you go. That picture, I don't know. I tried it on a different computer, and all the letters and so forth were disappeared, but clearly this seems to be working.
This one's okay.
Yeah, this is a picture of three things, coal, solar, and wind, over a course of 20 years, starting in 2000 and ending in 2019. And as you can see, coal is basically crashing.
And it's interesting because you take the two of them together and their rise is very close to being exponential.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, solar and wind, it's exponential. And when you throw in batteries, it's going to be, I don't know what the word is for going hyper-exponential.
Well, let's talk about it. CO₂ emissions fell by 12% as wind and solar took the lead in Europe.
A report, the European power sector in 2019, was recently published by climate think tanks Sandbag. Does that sound like a think tank to you?
Sandbag? Doesn't sound like a think tank.
And Agora Energiewende. It says that wind and solar provided 18% of EU electricity in 2019, while coal fell to just 15%.
That's the first time wind and solar have provided more electricity than coal in the EU.
Yeah.
This is the first time it's actually done so.
Yep.
And a little takeaway from it, 5 years ago, that wasn't too long ago, the EU generated twice as much for coal as it did for wind and solar combined.
you can look at that graph and it's very believable that 5 years ago it was twice as much. Interesting
article, interesting details. This is a good article.
Yep. The next article is kind of more of the same. It's from CNN.
Exxon's market value has crumbled by $184 billion. Well, it was high to begin with.
ExxonMobil, the world's most valuable public company in 2014, looks like it is in a steady decline. A stunning $184 billion, 41% of its value, has been wiped off Exxon's market valuation since the 2014 peak. It just posted dreadful results that suggest turnaround is unlikely anytime soon.
Well, the article from CNN, they usually have a pretty good website. It's a short, informative video about exactly that. And the takeaway is that the stock has plunged to a 9-year low.
Yes.
Okay. The shale revolution has left the world brimming with oil and gas, depressing prices. and Exxon had focused on expensive long-term drilling projects overseas, rather than fracking in North Dakota and Texas.
Right.
So they seem to have made some of the wrong decisions, and now they're suffering.
There are other people who made wrong decisions too.
Oh, yeah.
I decided that I was going to look at the Dow Jones Oil and Gas Index.
Yeah.
And here is ExxonMobil, it's down 41%. The Dow Jones Oil and Gas Index in the same time is down 47%.
Is it really?
Yeah. And by
That's
the way...
renewables, isn't it?
Huh?
Renewables, isn't it?
Yeah, and the coal index is hanging around at numbers like 14. You know, the coal index was about 750 in 2008. Now it's 14.
Well, we've been
13.
talking about companies going bankrupt and
Yeah.
whatever.
How in the world Dow Jones can come up with a coal index and maintain it, I don't know, because the coal companies are just...
They're falling like flies.
Yeah, they are. Yeah. Okay, should we move on?
Yeah, we got a goodie coming up here.
This is from Yahoo News.
Trump withholding $823 million for clean energy. He wouldn't do a thing like that.
I don't think so. The Trump administration is withholding funding for clean energy program it unsuccessfully tried to cut, according to Democrats on the House Science Committee. This raises the specter of political interference. The unspent funds now amount to $823 million.
Well, what he's saying, if you're not going to play by my rules, I'm going to take my football and go home.
Yeah.
This delayed funding was said to be an example of ideologically driven efforts that thwart action to control climate change.
Yes.
But how can you do that? It's a myth.
Well, the problem that they've got is that, you know, I think about this, and it goes back to Ayn Rand. She had this idea called objectivism.
Yeah, I remember that.
And there's a difference between objectivism and
objectivity.
Yeah. And the highest value is the value of objectivism, which looks to me like it's probably money and power. And
I wouldn't argue that point. It wouldn't at all.
okay, we are up to February 7th, which is a Friday. And by the way, I want to point something out here. When we prepare this show, Tom and I use a blog that I've had up for years, not with the intention that anybody use it except us, but it's there.
It's a good blog.
It's a good blog. And that blog provides basically a script for this show.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a very kind of loose script, but it's there. And, you know, it occurred to me as we were talking about turning Energy Week into... not turning it into what do they call those things that are done on radios?
I'm missing you. I don't know.
Okay, well, there's a thing that we could do with Energy Week where it would be in a television format and then also in a kind of radio format that could come to a smartphone. And it occurred to me that we could make that blog available for people who are following it. Well, okay, so we can make it available for people who are following it on television too. So
why not?
There it is. If you look at the I'm sorry, I've got a cold. It's mind is not functioning properly. If you look at the links that are associated with this post, you'll find one that goes to Energy Week News, and that will take you to this week's script.
Okay.
So you can just follow it and scroll through, and hopefully we'll develop this into podcast.
Aha.
It's for a podcast.
That was the word you were looking for.
Okay. So
well, this is what's been. This has been in the news. It's been in the news for a while, and it's kind of disturbing down under.
Yes.
Australia fires. Heavy rain. This is good news a little bit from the Australian fires because we've been talking about them on the show.
Yes.
Heavy rains extinguish 1/3 of the blazes in New South Wales. And that's only one state in Australia, but it's
a huge state. But the fire authorities are saying that they expect all of the fires in New South Wales to be extinguished by the end of the weekend.
Well, that's good news.
Sure is.
Because they've been pretty harsh down there.
Okay, torrential rain. I knew a person who always called it torrential rain. I don't think it was done
for
as a
real,
joke.
or,
yeah. Across the east coast of Australia has extinguished about a third of the fires in the region and could put out more, officials say. A wide band of rain sweeping through New South Wales has put out 20 of about 60 fires in the state in the past day. Now, authorities are warning about flash flooding. Yeah, they're having problems with flash flooding.
Yeah.
We're going to get back to this.
Yeah, we'll be talking about this again.
Yeah.
There's a minute and a half video here that's worth looking at. Sydney has had its wettest day in well over a year.
Well, you know, here we've got drought, horrible drought.
And then floods.
Fires, and then all of a sudden, the thing that we flip to is excessive rain. And not just excessive rain, but in some places record
seriously
rain.
Excessive rain.
Yeah.
Well, from the article, as much of New South Wales has been in drought for over 3 years.
Yeah.
The largest blazes in the state's inland south have received only limited showers so far and were still of concern.
Yes.
Now, this was last week they were talking, but heavy rains are predicted to continue until next week. And apparently they have been.
Yes, they have been. Okay, we have a picture here.
Amazing.
It comes from Natalia Fedosenko, who works apparently for TASS.
I'll take your word for it.
TASS is a Russian news agency, which, you know, in most of my life was associated with the communist government.
Well, in case you haven't figured it out, that's a bumblebee.
Yeah, there it is.
And the article states that bumblebees' decline points to a mass extinction, which is kind of scary.
It is. Bumblebees' decline points to, well, you've already read that. Bumblebees are in drastic decline across Europe and North America, owing to hotter and more frequent temperature extremes, scientists say. Data collected for a 115-year period on 66 bumblebee species now show how bumblebee populations have changed over the years.
The bumblebees are the wild population of bees. They're slightly larger than honeybees.
Yeah.
And what the article says here is populations are disappearing in areas where the temperatures have gotten hotter.
Yeah.
Okay, the likelihood of a bumblebee population surviving in any given place has declined by 30% in the course of a single human generation.
Yes.
They don't like heat. The rates of decline appear to be consistent with a mass distinction. And there's a little bit of advice in here. Help bees by not mowing dandelions.
There you go.
Interesting little sideline there.
Absolutely. Okay, that was from The Guardian, and our next item is also from The Guardian.
It is that. When it comes to climate hypocrisy, Canada's leaders have reached a new low.
Yeah.
This one, by the way, is by Bill McKibben, who's from Vermont.
Yes, that's correct. Canada made pledges about net zero emissions by 2050. The government would seem to believe that the climate crisis is real and dangerous, but it is about to approve a shale oil mine that could put up about a third of the Earth's carbon budget.
Well, from the article, it says there's oil in the ground and it must come out.
That's what Justin Trudeau said.
I didn't...
And, you know, it's like, really? Is that really what we want to do?
Well, there's a couple of takeaways here. They're talking about the Tech Frontier mine here.
Okay.
Which would be the biggest mine in the tar sands, and 113 square miles, which would be like 10 times 12 miles overall. This is a big mine. And the mine proposal is predicated on the idea that we'll still need vast quantities of oil in 2066. when Greta Thunberg is about to hit retirement age. Oil has addled the Canadian ability to do basic math. More does not equal less, and 2066 is not anytime soon. An emergency means you act now.
Yes, that is correct.
And that's the bottom line.
Right.
Stop dragging your feet.
Yep. Now we're up to Saturday, February 8th, and we have a picture of Jim
He
Cramer.
looks mad. He looks angry.
Either that or confused, but I suspect it's angry.
It's more like angry, I think. Mad Money's Jim Cramer, that's him, is done with fossil fuels. Now this is an advisor.
And this particular article came from Forbes. Jim Cramer, a stock analyst and money manager known for yelling about one stock or another on his show Mad Money, was asked about investing in Chevron or Exxon Mobil. This gave him the opportunity to speak out against buying into those oil companies or any other fossil fuel companies.
Well, from the article, when Cramer squawks, people listen. And there's a little takeaway here. If the big pension funds are saying they're done with these stocks, then there's no point in hitching your wagon to them.
Yes.
That's him talking.
And what does that tell you about this thing that they're doing in Canada? I mean, we've got two articles, one right after the other.
Yeah, we'll be talking about that. Yeah, we'll be talking more
Crazy.
about that. Well, as an article in the article, we just mentioned Bill McKibben.
Yes.
And he happened to have commented on this one with enthusiasm.
Yes.
Okay. And he's issued a number of papers explaining why investing in fossil fuels is risky in an area where automobiles are getting more and more electric.
Yeah.
Which is absolutely true.
Absolutely true.
And we'll probably be touching base on that again.
Yes, indeed. Okay, we've got an item here from KTLA, and we have
Wait a second, I got one from CNN.
Oh, you do? You're absolutely right. CNN.
KTLA is coming up.
It is indeed.
Justice Department notifies 4 automakers it has dropped antitrust investigation.
You know,
and that picture shouldn't be up yet.
Well, I can.
It's the next one.
Yeah.
We'll put you up.
I can. There you go. I can go back to Cramer.
Yeah, we'll put Cramer up as long as we're talking about it.
Okay. The Justice Department notified 4 major automakers that it had closed an antitrust investigation involving the companies launched after they rejected the Trump administration's relaxed air pollution and mileage regulations, a department official told CNN.
Well, the backstory here is that Justice opened an antitrust investigation into 4 companies, BMW, Ford, Honda, and Volkswagen.
Yep.
After they agreed to meet tougher standards set by the California Air Resources Board, rather than the administration's rules, which would roll back standards put into place under former President Barack Obama. So this guy is trying to destroy anything that Obama did simply because Obama did it,
I think that's the case, yes.
Well, in any case, the department's decision to drop the investigation represents a retreat for administration that has consistently sought to undermine environmental protections.
There you go.
There you go.
Okay.
Well,
now
we got
go
this picture coming up again.
KTLA.
Let's bring it back up again.
There we go.
That is a town called Esperanza. And Esperanza is located on the extreme tip of what they call the South...
I think it's called
Antarctic Peninsula.
Yes.
Okay, which sticks up towards South America. And according to the article, 65-degree weather in Antarctica appears to have broken a heat record.
The temperature in northern Antarctica, you know, I gotta say, why do we talk about northern Antarctica?
Well, everything's north.
Everything's north.
But there's a conventional way of depicting
Antarctica
where that looks like it's in the north.
But
you're right. Everything is north.
The temperature in northern Antarctica hit nearly 65 degrees Fahrenheit, which is 18.3 degrees Celsius. A likely heat record on the continent best known for snow, ice, and penguins. The reading was taken at Esperanza Base, an area that has warmed almost 5.4 degrees Fahrenheit, which is 3 degrees Celsius.
Well, Esperanza is one of the few places in Antarctica that's actually north of the Antarctic Circle.
Oh, really? I didn't
just,
know that.
Yeah, it's just outside of it. Well, in any case, climate change is heating up the Earth's polar regions faster than
yeah.
other regions of the planet, and we will be discussing this more later on.
In detail. Yeah.
So we got one coming up on Sunday, February 9th.
Sunday, February 9th from
And I
Forbes.
don't have a picture yet. That's for the next one. But the Trump administration is not trying to save the coal industry, the new energy secretary says. Well, what's he trying to do?
A little bit confusing. Coal will probably continue to decline as a fuel for U.S. power plants, the Secretary of Energy said, but it might supply rare earth elements needed for batteries. The U.S. coal industry has declined faster under Trump than under Obama. And what they're saying is, there's a lot of these rare earth elements, which most people have never even heard of.
But they use them in things like cell phones.
They use them in all kinds of things.
Yes.
And
they're not as rare as they might
No,
be
they
indicated.
aren't rare. What they are is hard to isolate.
Uh-huh.
And they were found rather late because it's really difficult to tell them apart. I used to work with them. And, I worked with gadolinium, and it's...
Can't get any rarer than that. Well, in any case, what's happening here is competition from natural gas and renewables. That's taking its toll on coal.
Taking
its toll on coal.
That's right.
The Secretary announced a $64 million research initiative to develop smaller, cleaner coal plants. Huh? But primarily as a technology to export.
This is
dwarfed by the $125 million Department of Energy, $125 million the Department of Energy just announced for solar research.
Well, the clean coal...
Yeah, no such thing.
If you think about it, the reason why coal is falling the reason why coal is disappearing is because it's too expensive.
I was just going to say, it's money.
If you add carbon capture onto that, it just becomes more expensive.
Absolutely.
So how are you going to have clean coal? I don't think you can.
Well, that's why I said there's no such thing.
Yeah.
I mean, coal has done very well for this country, but its time is over. Sell your coal stock, guys.
Time has been over. As I said, the coal index is down around 14.
Yeah.
And in 2008, it was up around 750.
There won't be one in a few years.
It's not going to be revived, I don't think.
It would take a major shake-up, something really big to revive it, I think.
I think it would. Okay, now we have a picture
coming up
of spec boom.
This is interesting.
It is. And I looked at that and I thought, what kind of a name is spec boom? And then I thought, okay, it's from South Africa,
Yep.
which means that it's probably Afrikaans. Afrikaans
is
a Dutch dialect, and
Yeah.
it's related to German. And boom is probably the same word as baum. And if that's the case, spec would mean bacon. So this is bacon tree. And I looked it up, and in fact, that is correct.
Bacon tree, huh? Bacon tree.
Yeah.
Well, there's a lot about this one here.
There is.
How shrubs can help solve climate change.
In South Africa, there used to be a thicket about the size of Cyprus. Cyprus is pretty big.
That's about a third the size of Vermont.
Cypresses?
Yeah.
Really? That could suck up the equivalent of 3 times the U.S. annual carbon emissions. Okay. That happens not to be correct. I know this came from the BBC,
Yep.
but it is not correct.
Well, you got to know about exactly that.
Yeah, spec boom is a shrub that grows in semi-desert. Not only useful as a carbon sink, it has the ability to alter local soil and weather conditions.
Which makes it very interesting.
Yeah, so other plants can grow. Now, what happened here was, for some reason, the person who wrote this article wrote it in as American carbon emissions at 5,783 million tons, when it in fact was 5,783 billion tons.
That's a big mistake.
It's a big mistake, but it's understandable. So that means that it's not going to be 3 times the U.S. emissions. It would be more like 0.3%.
Well, this is a long and interesting article. This is one that you'll have some fun reading, I think.
It's a very interesting article, and the idea that you could have this plant, which, by the way, you can eat.
Yes, you can. Yeah, I saw a picture of it, and it looks like a great big 10-foot tall piece of broccoli.
Really?
You're not going to get that from this picture here.
Yeah. But, you know, it alters the soil, it alters the weather.
Well, I got a little blurb about that.
Yeah.
South Africa has been in drought for the past 3 years, which we've already mentioned.
Yes.
Now, speckboom, otherwise known as pork bush,
Yes, there you go.
is an evergreen succulent shrub that can reach 16 feet in height.
Okay.
Because of a remarkable growth rate, its rate of carbon capture can rival that of tropical forests. And the South African government, has a goal of planting 1 million hectares, which, interestingly enough, is the size of Cyprus, of speckboom in national parks and on private land.
Okay.
So the South African government's getting on the stick here.
Yes. Okay. Should we move on?
Yeah, we got another one coming up, which is interesting.
Okay, this is from Clean Technica.
It is that. It's a long, interesting article. The 2020 Chevy Bolt, not the Volt now, it's the Bolt. GM changes the game again.
In 2016, Chevy Bolt became the first affordable long-range EV, beating Tesla Model 3 to market. Now it has been updated. You can buy a Bolt for around $26,000. It undersells all affordable EVs you can buy in America, and it also has longer range than any of them.
Well, the Bolt is total electric.
Yes.
The Volt is a hybrid.
Yes.
Okay, that's the difference. EVs are a pleasure to drive. Quiet, responsive, clean, and maintenance-free.
Yeah.
That's a fact.
Yeah.
They are easier to build and more durable than internal combustion engine cars. Thousands of parts, fluids, and consumables are all gone in the EV.
Right.
They use regenerative braking to slow the car, so brakes last indefinitely. And
Well,
in this particular case, the doors, the hood, and the rear hatch are all aluminum.
I had a Prius,
Did you?
and it did regenerative braking,
Yeah.
and I depended on that regenerative braking a lot. And my mechanic looked at the brakes and he said, "George, you got to use those brakes more," because they were getting rusty.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Well, it's 2 thumbs up for GM
Yeah.
and its EV future and the 2020 Bolt. At 26 grand, it's going to be very hard for any car company to beat.
Okay.
That's what the article says.
Okay.
Let's move on to Monday, February 10th. Time is a waste in here. I never did start the red timer.
No, you didn't. I've just been looking at that and trying to figure out where we
Too
are.
late to, well, you just take the green number and subtract. Monday, February 10th. January 2010 is the warmest on record, and there's an image coming up, and I'll try and get that one up there. And there it is.
Yes, last month was the warmest January on record globally, while in Europe temperatures were a balmy 3 degrees Celsius. 3 degrees Celsius is a lot.
5.5 degrees Fahrenheit.
Yeah, above average in January, average for January from 1981 to 2010. New temperature highs have become commonplace, mainly due to the impact of climate change, scientists say. And
finish up.
This is from a publication called ENCA.
I'm going to put the picture up again because
Yeah,
the
okay.
picture is critical. That's the Extinction Rebellion symbol.
Yes.
And so climate is changing, so should we.
Yeah.
Act now, and that's the message. Act
Yes.
now. Now is the time to act.
Yes.
10 years from now will be too late.
Yes.
New temperature highs. Monthly, yearly, decadal have become commonplace due to the impact of climate change, caused mainly by the burning of fossil fuels. In Northern Europe, temperatures were an unprecedented 6 degrees higher.
Huh.
Kind of
Okay.
scary.
Then we have an item from Energy and Policy Institute.
Coming right up, Tri-State, which we've talked about,
Yes.
will replace coal plants with 1 gigawatt of new wind and solar. And as you've heard me say on this show, gig means big.
That's right. Tri-State Generation and Transmission Association will close its coal-burning plants in Colorado and New Mexico and build renewable projects. Tri-State announced 304 megawatts of new wind projects and 715 megawatts of new solar projects in Colorado and New Mexico. Now, this is particularly interesting because Tri-State is the one that a couple of years ago was just resisting.
They've changed their mind.
I guess they have.
Well, it's an interesting, how would you say it, agglomeration of things.
Yes.
Back when electricity was first spreading through America, it was very expensive to bring it into rural areas.
Yeah.
So a lot of the local people took it into their own hands and created co-ops. And there's even a few left in Vermont.
Yes.
Okay, and Tri-State is a co-op of co-ops.
Yes.
Okay, it's a nonprofit, and it's owned by its members, all of whom are co-ops themselves.
Yes.
So they are a distribution co-op.
And what happened was they had a deal, an agreement with their members, saying that the members would not put more than 5% of the power generated on the grid from themselves, which meant that they could not have more than 5% of their electricity coming from their own solar or wind power. And
they had to buy power.
Yeah, and they went to Tri-State and said, we want renewable power. And Tri-State said, too expensive. And so all of a sudden, they started facing the problem that I think there were 3 different...
well, the article says they're going to close 2 of them, so...
No, there were, I'm talking about them. There were, I think, 3 different co-ops that decided to buy out.
Oh, we talked about that on the show. Yes, we did.
Okay. We are back to the BBC.
We're back to Sydney.
And we're back to Sydney.
Back to Australia. Sydney rains. Record rainfall brings flooding, but puts out mega blaze.
Sydney has been hit by its heaviest rain in 30 years, bringing widespread flooding, but also putting out 2 massive bushfires in New South Wales. Australia's weather agency said 391.6 millimeters, which is 15.4 inches of rain, had fallen in the last 4 days in Sydney. You think?
Boy, they're not kidding. That's a lot of rain.
That's a lot of rain.
That's more than 3 times of the average rainfall for the month of February.
Well, you know, again, this is like California, where they had drought, flood.
Well, that's what the article says. The state has gone from one wave of extreme weather to another.
Yeah.
The rains extinguished more than 30 fires over the weekend, and that was last weekend.
Yeah.
Okay, about 100,000 homes were then without power, and dozens of schools have been closed.
Yes.
So they're going from bad to worse.
Well, I'd
bad
rather
to worse,
have
more bad.
I'd rather have flooding than fires.
Well, I think that's true.
Yeah.
I think that's true.
Okay, we are up to Tuesday, February 11th.
And we got a picture.
And we have a picture of an offshore wind farm.
Looks like that to me. It looks like an offshore wind farm to me. Red Rock to increase capacity at Inch Cape. That doesn't make much sense at all. I think you're going to explain it to it.
Red Rock Power has applied to boost capacity at Inch Cape offshore wind farm off East Scotland up to 1 gigawatt from 700 megawatts. Capacity increase will be achieved without raising turbine numbers thanks to what are called technological advances. The Chinese-owned company told Scottish authorities. This is really interesting to me.
Well, I did some quick math, and in order to do that, they would need 14 megawatt turbines. And
Really?
the biggest turbine you can buy now is GE's 12 megawatt. So maybe they know something we don't know yet.
Yeah, it may be either that or they're complete con artists. That happens sometimes.
There could be an error in the article.
Yeah.
But, in any case, they're still going to put in bigger turbines than they had planned.
Yes.
And there's not going to be any fewer of them. They're going to be putting them in the same spots.
Yes.
So Red Rock believes the jump to a gigawatt will have no additional impacts as laid out in environmental habitats and appropriate assessment studies already conducted. So nothing's going to change except the turbines are going to be bigger.
Yes. Yes. Okay, we have an item here from, that by the way was from Renews.
That was from Renews.
This one is from Clean Technica.
Yeah, I had a hard time getting Renews up.
Yeah, you told me it happens. That happens to me every once in a while.
Something happened to them.
Yeah, it happens.
I tried it with
like
several browsers. And
yeah, every week,
was coming
something like that. They have.
But then it came back
100%.
up again.
Yeah.
So it looks like their browser was down, or
They may have had maintenance going on.
yeah, something like that. Anyhow, this is an interesting article. Arctic permafrost thawing will double previous carbon emissions estimates. Not good news.
A study from the Colorado University Boulder shows that the abrupt thawing of the Arctic permafrost will double previous estimates of potential carbon emissions. In fact, it is already changing the landscape and ecology of the circumpolar north.
Well, what they're saying here, permafrost is the world's largest freezer.
Yes.
Okay? Warming will trigger a massive defrost
Yes.
that will thaw out not just twice as much carbon as is in the atmosphere now, but also the remains of life that once flourished in the Arctic.
Yes.
Okay? It's buried in the permafrost.
Yes.
Okay, this matter, which never fully decomposed, has been locked away in this freezer for thousands of years. And it says permafrost collapse is irreversible.
Well, it is. Yeah.
So here's the takeaway. These fundings bring new urgency.
Yes.
We can definitely stave off the worst consequences if we act now.
Now is the
Now is
operative
now.
word. Okay, we have an item from CNN, and
This
we
one
have a
is
picture.
from CNN. Yeah, this is a good picture. This is a good article.
That is a chin
Lots
strap.
of pictures in this.
Chin strap
penguins.
penguin.
I like penguins.
I do too.
Some Antarctic penguin colonies have declined by more than 75% over 50 years.
Penguin colonies in some part of the Antarctic have declined by more than 75% in the past half century, largely as a result of climate change, researchers say. The colonies of chinstrap penguins were last surveyed almost 50 years ago. And you know, Tom, that makes me wonder about how good this data is. Because if
They're not looking at it.
Yeah, they're not looking at it. And it might be from climate change, but it might be that a lot of it came from something else.
Well, this is a good article to look up. There's a lot of pictures on it if you
Yes,
like pictures.
Absolutely.
And the takeaway is that climate change has led to warmer oceans, which has meant less krill, which is the main component of the
Yes.
penguin's diet.
Yes.
And other down
species.
there too, a lot of fish.
Yeah, they need food.
Now,
And they're-
Greenpeace, this is a good takeaway. They've been campaigning for the establishment of Antarctic sanctuaries, which would offer protection to penguin colonies and would be off limits to humans.
Yeah. Yep. Okay, we have a picture of a koala.
I think we do.
No, we don't.
No, that's for the next.
That's the next one. Our next item is from Renews.
Global carbon emissions flatline in 2019, which I guess is good.
Global carbon dioxide emissions plateaued in 2019, defying expectations of a rise, according to International Energy Agency data. After 2 years of growth, global CO2 emissions were unchanged at 33 gigatons in 2019, but even as the world economy expanded by 2.9%, according to the EIA.
Yeah, this is one of the ones I had trouble
Yeah,
downloading.
really?
And finally, it came back up. But
Yeah.
apparently their server was down.
Yeah,
Well, anyhow, the main reason for declining emissions from electricity is due to the expanding role of renewables, as you would know if you listen to this show.
yes,
Fuel switching from coal to natural gas is also helping, and higher nuclear power generation. So there's a lot of reasons why global carbon emissions are flatlining, and that's good
Yes.
news.
Okay, now we have an item
Now
from
we
the
got that
BBC.
picture coming up.
This is a koala with mittens.
Well, I don't think they're mittens. I think they're bandages. But
They're bandages. They're bandages.
in any case, nice picture of a koala. Koalas are
that
very, very, how would you say it, endearing.
Yes,
like
they
teddy
are.
bears.
That's right.
Australia fires. 113 animal species need emergency help. A lot of pictures on this article.
Yes. Australia has identified 113 animal species which need urgent help after their numbers and habitats were devastated by recent bushfires. There appear to be no extinctions, the government said, but almost all species on the list had lost at least 30% of their habitats due to the fires. So these animals, the ones that survived, have nowhere near what they had to live in.
Well, according to the article, it says there appear to be no extinctions, and I would add to that yet.
Yes.
Okay.
True enough.
Well, because one of the things that's happening is many of the animals that have survived the fires are going back to their habitats, and the habitats have been
There's no food.
destroyed. There's no food for them.
There's no food.
We did, I don't know if we showed this picture or not, but I saw one picture of a koala bear sitting in front of a whole bunch of carrots.
Oh, yes.
Well, in any case, researchers estimate that more than 1 billion animals may have perished in the fires. Koalas and wallabies, as well as bird, fish, and frog species, are among those needing the most help. The panel found some highly threatened species faced imminent risk of extinction because almost all of their habitat has been destroyed. And the koala has had substantial sections destroyed, which means they need emergency intervention to support their recovery. And that picture of carrots being dropped is part
The
of the
carrots
emergency.
are not going to help the koalas. They'll help the wallabies. But
Well, this particular koala was eating carrots, so
amazing.
he must have been
What I
hungry.
have been told is that the koalas have to have
Eucalyptus leaves.
eucalyptus
I think I read
leaves.
that too.
Yeah. Okay, our
What's
last,
the last item?
is from Renews.
Mayflower wind to deliver $58 megawatt hour power. That's almost 6 cents.
Yeah,
That seems kind of high.
I don't think so. This is offshore wind. It
Well,
would
it
be,
depends on the market,
Yeah,
because we talked about Tri-State earlier on paying 2 cents.
yes, but that's onshore wind in solar. Output from the 804 megawatt Mayflower wind offshore wind farm off the east coast of the United States will be sold to Massachusetts utilities.
That's the one off Block Island, or
I don't know. I don't remember.
it's definitely in Massachusetts.
Yes, for $58 per megawatt hour, which is 5.8 cents per kilowatt hour.
Yeah.
According to documents filed on the power purchase agreement, the regular wholesale market prices are projected to be $84 per megawatt hour. So this is considerably lower price than wholesale.
Well, presently Vineyard Wind is selling in this market for 6.5 cents a kilowatt hour.
Right.
So this is definitely a saving.
Yes.
And it's 2 cents down south, but how do you get it up here?
You hire 20,000 people to bring it up
Coolies.
on their bicycles.
Yeah.
That's right.
Well, that's it. The wheeling cost of getting it up here, there may not even be that capacity.
Probably not. But, you know, we have a market that isn't really firmly established yet. And it's going to take some time to get this all.
Well, we have not anywhere near come clear to using the resources off the East Coast for generating offshore.
Oh, no. Yeah, you're absolutely
Nowhere
right.
near it.
Nowhere near.
And it's ripe. I mean, it's shallow. You know, they can anchor these things to the ground.
And, you know, I read an interesting study several years ago. They were talking about, okay, solar power is intermittent. Wind power is not intermittent. It is variable.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And what the author of the study said was wind power from a wind farm is going to be producing power something on the order of 98% of the time. It's just
It's that high, huh?
Yeah, it's not going to be a huge amount,
But there's some
but there's
power
always some power coming out. And
coming. So the solution is storage.
yeah, absolutely. The solution is storage. And, you know, same thing with solar power. You fill your batteries up during the daytime and,
Sure.
you know.
And the costs of storage are coming down considerably.
They are indeed, yes. Yeah. Now, Tom, we have done our last article.
I think we have.
And we're actually way ahead of schedule here.
Anything you want to go back and talk about?
No, I'm not really feeling very good, and I'd like to
Go take a nap.
go take a nap. I really would. So,
Well, let's say goodbye.
yeah, we can do that.
Adios, folks.
Have a good weekend. Have a good week. And here, have a perfectly lovely week. That says I forgot to put the thing in.
I'll put that one up.
I have a different one every week, and perfectly lovely is the default. So, so have a perfectly lovely week.